Welcome to all the participants of this webinar number 6 of the SocialRES project. I'm happy to welcome also the participants that we have here in Zoom. So for your information, I inform you that this webinar will be broadcasted in LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. The participants that we have here in Zoom, they will have the possibility to answer directly to our to make questions at the end of the webinars. Anyhow, we are going also to check the comment that we are going to have in LinkedIn, Zoom, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. So please feel free, followers that you are seeing us from LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, to write your comment, your question in the comment, and then they will be directly to this Zoom meeting. So thanks a lot. I kindly ask, as you have already done, the participant in Zoom to keep the camera and the microphone off during the webinars. Then we give the possibility you to talk after the webinars. So my name is Silvia Caneva. I'm the coordinator of the SocialRES project. WIPA Renewable Energies is the organization I'm working for. Today we are here with a very relevant webinars to see how can social innovation contribute to the mitigation of climate change. Therefore, here with me, you can already see we have Jung Lin. Jung Lin was taking part at the COP26 as an activist of the global Young Greens, that is an NGO-observer. So Jung Lin will share with us today her experience at the COP26 and how social innovation can provide a solution to this, I would say, urgent climate crisis that we see every day now in the newspaper, in television, how much important it is really to act, to walk the talk in the direction of sustainable development. So Jung Lin will share in a few minutes now her presentation. Before that, I would like to share with you a few slides from the SocialRES project to provide you with an overview on the definition of social innovation and also the social innovation that we are addressing in the SocialRES project. So I will now share my presentation, but before that, give me the possibility to fully introduce you Jung Lin. So Jung Lin nowadays is a trainee in the energy transition team of Lake Constance Foundation. She's involved in projects of social innovation, energy citizenship, and coupling sector. She graduated with a master's degree in sociology from the University of Cologne in Germany. As I said before, she's here with us to represent Lake Constance Foundation, that is one of the partners of the SocialRES, and also her former experience as an activist for global Young Greens at the COP26. Now I will share with you, as I said, a few slides of SocialRES, and then I will give the floor to Jung Lin. So give me 1 second to share my screen. Okay, perfect. Then it should be in presentation mode. If you don't see it, please let me know. So welcome again to this webinar number 6 of the SocialRES project. The name of the webinar is How Can Social Innovations Mitigate Global Warming? And we will have with Jung Lin the outcomes from the COP26. Before giving the floor to Jung Lin, I just would like briefly provide you a definition, let's say, of social innovation, because the idea of a SocialRES project, that is a project, a European project financed by the European Commission, is to fostering the participation of citizens in the clean energy transition with social innovation business models. So let's have a look at what does it mean social innovation business models. Social innovation are innovation that are good for the society, but also they are able to create a new relationship and the collaboration among the citizens. So social innovation are new ideas, products, services, and models that are able to meet at the same time the social needs, and then also to create, as we said, new relationship, a new social relationship and a collaboration among citizens. You can really understand nowadays how important is to provide, let's say, the market with innovation that are able at the same time to satisfy, to meet the social needs, but at the same time to create a new relationship among citizens, especially in the particular moment of this pandemic that we are, all of us, experience. In SocialRES, we have three kind of business models. And so there are crowdfunding, renewable energy cooperative energy community, and aggregators. So as you can see here, each business model is able to meet a specific need of the citizens, of the society. So with the renewable energy community and cooperative, we are able to have the citizens involved in the clean energy transition, and therefore we are able to cover the needs, let's say, of sense of belongings. With crowdfunding, we are able to provide a financial sustainability of the investment done by citizens. With the investment in crowdfunding or renewable energies, you can have a return on investment, and therefore we are able to cover the needs of citizen financing. With the aggregation of prosumer and consumers, we are able to address the need of energy competitiveness. And so if you are a prosumer aggregated by aggregators, let's say, you are able really to have energy that is more competitive, and therefore you are able also to have a financial benefit from this point of view. Now we are going to see how social innovation can mitigate the climate crisis. So the question, can social innovation mitigate the climate crisis, is yes. The answer is yes. As we see, there are several possibilities through accelerating and expanding the global energy transition, then with the citizen empowerment, real green business, capacity building community, tackling inequities, direct action in natural conservation. So social innovation is really essential to mitigate the global warming and provide, therefore, a sustainable solution to the climate crisis. Now I'm happy to give the floor to Jung Lin, that she will provide you with the outcome of this great experience at the COP26. So please, Jung Lin, the floor is yours. I stop sharing so you can share your presentation. I will now switch off my camera, my microphone, and then I will come back to you after your presentation. So Jung Lin, thanks a lot for your participation with us today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks a lot, Sylvia, for the great introduction. So now I will just share my presentation, and I'm also very happy to be invited to present this interesting topic in the Lancet SocialRES. So yeah, like today, I'm from the Lake Constance Foundation, and today I will mainly focus on the outcome from COP26 and also what is its implication for social innovation projects, and also how and for the global energy transition also in general. So this will be the agenda of my presentation. First, I will have a short introduction to COP and Paris Agreement to make sure everyone's on the same page. And then also I will talk about the achievement and the outcomes of COP26, and especially with a focus of global energy transition, because COP, of course, discussed a big variety of the different issues about forests, about nature conservation, about water and pollution, and a lot of much bigger scale of different environmental issues. But today we will mainly focus on the different agreements and outcome relate to energy transition. And then I will talk about its implication for energy transition and social innovation, and in the end is a short conclusion. So quickly introduce who we are. We are Lake Constance Foundation. We are based in Glasgow in Germany, and we are a private organization for environmental protection and nature conservation. And we are a project-oriented foundation. We work on different kind of projects within Germany or internationally. And a lot of them are related to like the international Lake Constance area, But we are, of course, also involved in projects at a much larger scale. So, for example, like SocialRES, which we work with international partners in different European countries. Yeah, and we have 4 focus is like energy transition, agriculture and food sector, nature and lake conservation, as we have a big lake here. Yeah, and also business and biodiversity. So yeah, if you're interested in us, feel free to visit our website. And now we'll go to the topic itself. So yeah, as Sevilla already present you how social innovation can combat the climate crisis and mitigate the climate crisis. Yeah, like it is really important actually to really talk about like social innovations in the climate crisis context, and yeah, to also relate it to like the outcome of COP26. That is also what today we're trying to do. Yeah, and like now I will have a short introduction of COP. So COP is actually an abbreviation of Conference of the Parties. And it often is referred to the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And it takes place almost every year. COP26 was supposed to take place in 2020, but because of the pandemic, it was postponed to last year. And it is attended by countries that signed the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So that is, yeah, the abbreviation probably a lot of you have heard is like UNFCCC. This is the treaty which sort of established like the whole framework and like the conference about climate at the world level. Yeah, and this treaty is also in force since 1994. So yeah, COP has been more than 20 years of of history. And the most recent achievement of COP, which are highly celebrated, is probably Paris Agreement. We will not go through like the whole Paris Agreement, of course, but yeah, like we will just talk about the important achievement, especially regarding like the energy transition. First is set up a global climate goal. So we will try to control the temperature rise within 2 degrees and preferably 1.5 degrees. And then the other 2 points is one is to establish a mandatory framework for monitoring, reporting, and reassessing climate goals every 5 years. This is also a milestone for COP, is because most of the decisions from COP in the past was mostly just voluntary, but this framework is actually designed to be mandatory, which which asks for the nation states to report and to monitor their progress of their climate goals and their contribution. And the last one important point was to reinforce aspects like adaptation, mitigation, and loss and damage due to climate change. Adaptation basically means like because climate change is happening and climate disaster is happening around the world. So adaptation is about how community and the countries can be more resilient with like all kinds of like the impact of climate change. Mitigation is about how to lessen the impact of climate change. So yeah, it will not be just about being resilient, but also to actually do something to reduce the impact of it. And the last one, loss and damage, is also a relatively popular concept in recent years in COP, because it is a concept tackling the historical injustice. As we know, like mostly is like the Western country which has historically the most CO2 emission. Which contribute to their industrialization. But at this point, it is mostly the global South country which they bear the consequence of climate change. So loss and damage is the idea of the financial or non-financial compensation for this injustice, and also for the consequence which is just not avoidable for especially vulnerable countries and people. So now we move on to COP26. So what did COP26 achieve? The final resolution is called Glasgow Climate Pact. It has a lot of different aspects, but today we talk about mostly about energy transition. So one important point was it keep the 1.5 degree goal within reach. So it was clearly written in the final resolution. This was actually a struggle during the negotiation and also during the whole discussion about COP. Why? Because the most recent IPCC report and also most of the scientists also argue it is very unlikely actually for us to reach this goal, to keep the temperature rise within 1.5 degree. So that was also a discussion if this goal should be given up or should not be stressed again. But luckily, it is still put in the final resolution. So this hopefully will also still put more pressure on the countries to actually achieve these goals. And then the next one is to revisit the national and international pledge and progress every year. So it is actually only written as like it will be revisited this year. So instead of every 5 years. But of course, it's also not promised it's going to be indefinitely like this. So we still need to see how the negotiation this year will be like. And then the third one is also a milestone for COP. It is the first mentioning of coal industry in the final resolution. So it has a goal of to phase down coal globally. But of course, there is actually no clear deadline for it. So we like it, and also in the first draft, it was actually to phase out coal, but then it was changed to phase down coal. That was quite some struggle actually still about the wording and about like this aspect. So it's still a very it's still a political struggle here. And then the last tool was to significantly increase the adaptation and mitigation finance, especially for developing countries. As some of you might know from the media, which like the climate finance watch, which is promised in the previous COPs, was very insufficiently delivered. So in Glasgow Climate Pact was stressed again to be all delivered and also should be also increased with the amount. And the last one is to establish a common accounting framework for international carbon market, because the carbon market now it is still mostly regional, within certain countries. But like now it is established as a goal to actually establish a global accounting framework for it. Now I will talk about different sort of just like a few multilateral and bilateral agreement on energy transition, which was established during COP or right before COP26. The first one is Global Coal to Clean Power Transition Statement. This is signed by 45 countries to actually phase out unabated coal by 2030 for the industrial countries and 2040 for the rest of the world. This is considered achievement as having a clear deadline of phasing out certain kind of coal industry, but there's no participation from India, China, and USA, so the major coal country at the global scale. But at the European scale, it has a signature from Ukraine, Germany, and Poland. The funny thing is actually Poland afterwards released a statement say they will only phase out coal at 2049 instead of like 2030. Because they don't think they can manage it. Then the second important treaty is the international public support for clean energy transition. This one, it is also very important, is to end the investment in coal industry overseas. So now, like the the financing countries at the global scale, which are financing like the foreign coal projects, are China, UK, and Japan. And with this statement actually promised to end the public international support of coal industry this year actually. But there's only the endorsement from UK. So the other major investor hasn't really signed it. And then the last one at the global scale is also COP26 declaration on accelerating the transition to 100% zero emission car and vans. So this is also one of the few treaties on the e-mobilities, which are pretty popular in recent years. And yeah, like in this declaration, they promised to end like all the sales with new cars with emission by 2040. So it's like all the car sales, the new car sales at 2040 should be zero emission. It has like more than like I think 26 countries which endorse it. But yeah, and also include India and Canada as like an important car usage country and also production. But the other big car producers such as Germany, Italy, USA, Japan, and China, they didn't sign it. So that will be still a way to go actually to promote like the e-mobility at the global scale. And there are some like multilateral and bilateral agreement only within a few countries, but it is also very important for different reasons. For example, the first one is China, USA joint Glasgow declaration on enhancing climate action. So this is a joint statement from these two countries on like to promote the energy transition and to support like less emission in the energy sectors. Yeah, and as we know, in recent years, China and USA was considered to be very unlikely to cooperate on all the things. But in terms of COP26, they still managed to have a joint statement on this. So in this statement, it has different measures, but it's basically focusing on cooperation for more renewable energy integration, infrastructure, and also like supporting clean energy and carbon capture technology. So it still sort of include like the broader idea of clean energy, which would probably also include nuclear power. Yeah, but most of the goals in this statement, there's no clear deadline for it. The only goal is the USA promise in this statement. They will achieve 100% carbon pollution free electricity by 2035. Yeah. And the next one is about just energy transition partnership with South Africa. So this is a partnership between South Africa and France, Germany, UK, USA, and EU. So it is basically, you can say like try to establish a transformational model of energy transition for middle income country, which these countries promised for the first phase to already invest $8.5 billion in energy transition and renewable energy infrastructure and phasing out coal in South Africa. This is considered as politically very important. Is the first is a focus on just energy transition. So it also means they will consider the labor rights and community is also taken into consideration. And also South Africa is the biggest coal country in Africa. So this will be sort of like a big milestone for this continent also to achieve energy transition. Also, it's a pretty important for other middle income countries outside Africa. So for example, India and Indonesia, if that would be established as a successful model for a middle income country to phase out coal and also to actually change the infrastructure drastically. The last point will be about so there is a correlation called PPCA, Powering Past Coal Allies. This correlation is already established years ago, which they are promoting and putting pressure on their members to phase out coal, unabated coal at a certain point. So the goal of PPCA is to phase out unabated coal at 2030 for OECD and EU countries, and for 2050 for the rest of the world. Yeah, and during COP26, PPCA also gained quite some new membership, about like 20 new memberships. So that is also considered as an achievement in COP26. So now we would talk about like its implication for energy transition and social innovation. The first is we can see there is almost a global consensus of phasing down or phasing out coal, and also to promote more renewable energy infrastructure and integration into the electricity system. Yeah, and also in some countries, for example, the idea of sector coupling, of like introducing renewable energy into like other sector than just electricity, is also considered very relevant now to actually have much more renewable energy percentage in our energy production. So we could sort of foresee there will be more project and funding for renewable energy projects, and also hopefully on social innovation project in the context of energy transition. As we could see, basically, like energy citizenship is very important actually for the success of energy transition. Take Germany, for example. Actually, like for the recent decades, it was like 40 to 50% of the renewable energy production are actually from private households. So it is from the citizens' engagement in the energy transition. And so it's like basically engaging citizens into energy transition should be something very important for the success of it. And like we can see as COP have put much more pressure on the energy transition, we can hopefully hope for more development in this sector at a faster speed. And then the second aspect is also there is much more pressure on the involvement from the non-state sector. So I would, of course, like the pressure on land already exists in the previous COP. But in this COP, like most of the agreement I have mentioned, it was also signed by multinational companies, by different private financial institution, development banks. So it's like their participation now is considered very important for the success of energy transition. And this is also straightforward to think in that way because many companies actually use much more energy than like certain smaller countries. So to have the engagement from non-state sector is very relevant for the success of energy transition. And the last one about civil society. Civil societies, of course, also discuss a lot and talk a lot in COP26 as a very important actors in energy transition. But later we will talk about how important it is actually in political negotiation. So now I want to talk about some criticism regarding COP26, which they sort of failed to achieve. The first is there is insufficient recognition in the political negotiation itself for the importance of energy citizenship and social innovation. So what I mean is in COP26, there is basically all the COP, there is a lot of different side events, speeches, talks, and also political negotiation taking place at the same time. And you can see in a lot of side events, energy citizenship, citizen civil society, social innovation will be discussed, will be mentioned, will be considered as very important. But in the real political negotiation, as we can see in the outcomes, like almost none of them have really mentioned social innovation or really mentioned what concrete mechanism they want to introduce to empower the citizen to be more involved in energy transition and what is their role there. So another example we can also see in the financial distribution of climate finance is only about 10% of the climate finance goes to support small stakeholders and vulnerable groups for for climate adaptation and mitigation. So it's like the majority of it will still be pool into more like states and to like the other non-state actors such as companies and financial institutes and all this. So there is still a long way to go to actually to make energy citizenship and social innovation much more in the center in all this political negotiation in the future COP. And the other criticism would be also about there is a lack of effort in combating social inequality and power imbalance inside and outside COP. This is also, like as Sylvia had mentioned, I actually went there in the context as a young activist. So we could actually see like young people and also activists, civil societies, NGOs are usually there only with the status as NGO-observer. And that is already like pretty hard to reach already for a lot of grassroots organizations. So to actually get this status recognized by UN to participate. And even as NGO observer there, like a lot of political negotiation does not open to observer, even they plan to. So like usually they will say there's a lack of seats, there is because of security reason. So it's like even for observing, it is still quite some barrier for NGO observers. And we can also see at a broader scale, there is a clear underrepresentation of women. There's quite some data also reported from the media. It's like women participants in COP in basically throughout like the 26 COPs, they are always underrepresented as like 25% to 30%. So it is like majority still dominated by men in COP, but women are usually more affected by climate crisis, climate disaster in different national contexts. So it's like inside COP, there is already this clear power imbalance between the underrepresented groups and like the overrepresented groups. But outside COP, like it is still not enough attention and enough work to actually work on the social inequalities there. The last one I want to talk about as an aspect of inequality is there is another report from NGO called Global Witness, which they talk about like the fossil fuel industry actually has the biggest delegation in COP26. So they count basically all the participants which are directly related to fossil fuel industry. And there are in total more than 600 people. And that is bigger than any national delegation, which is very ironic in the way like they have a clear conflicts in interest with COP with like climate movement and climate protection measures. But they have actually the biggest delegation inside COP to which could have weakened like the ambitions and also the measure was eventually decided in COP. So to the conclusion, to stop climate crisis, we need everyone's participation in energy transition. So we need citizens, we need underrepresented group, no matter it's women or also young people or people with less income. They are all very important for the success of energy transition. And social innovation and energy citizenship can make it more inclusive, which involve more people, can make it faster and successful because you will have much more acceptance and also much more involvement actually just from more people. So yeah, we hope in the future COP, social innovation and energy citizenship would get much more attention and would get much more resource from the UN framework. But yeah, for now that we see some milestone, we see some achievement, but there's still quite some stuff to do in the future. So that's all from my presentation, and thanks a lot for your attention. And yeah, now the floor is open for discussion and also questions.
Thanks a lot, Jung Lin, for the very relevant presentation. We have seen indeed that during the COP26, several political agreement has been established, but they are not enough to guarantee let's say, the achievement of sustainable goals for our life on this planet. So that's why social innovation, such as cooperative energy community, crowdfunding, aggregation, prosumers, are really, really relevant. The citizens, as citizens, we really have now to provide our contribution. The business model are existing nowadays. In my opinion, they just need to be advertised a bit more, because a lot of citizens, they are not aware of the fact that they can really give a contribution, either as member of a cooperative or investing even a few euros really in a crowdfunding. And what is very important, the common denominator of social innovation is the power of many. So a lot of times we have the feeling as citizens alone that we cannot really give a contribution when we see the image of the climate crisis on television. But if we are together, and that's why the power of many, through crowdfunding, cooperative community, we can really provide a big contribution to mitigate the global warming. So thanks again, Jung Lin. If there are any questions from our participants that I see here in Zoom, you can, there is, let's say, a reaction in your Zoom tab on the bottom with the hand. If you want to, if you'd like to ask any question to our activist at the COP26, this is a good opportunity. Otherwise, I do not know. And now I ask a colleague from ICONS, Alice and Marta, if you see any question. No, from the social. No, thanks, Marta. No question. So I would like to thank again, if there are not questions from the audience, Jung Lin. Jung Lin, do you want to add anything to your presentation today?
Yeah, there was something I forgot to mention was we were also going to publish a report, basically like the implication of COP26 on energy transition and social innovation. This will be released probably within this week. So yeah, there will be, like today, I just mentioned a few aspects in the report, but yeah, in the report, you can see like much more discussion on all these aspects we mentioned today. Yeah, so we'll be also happy to forward all this like in the future, to the participants in the later time.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, then they will be available on the SocialRES website. To all the participants, follow the SocialRES.eu, www.socialres.eu website. Okay, we have a question from Andrew Hunt. Maybe you don't have the option to raise your hand, but you can unmute yourself. Okay, hello, Andrew. Welcome. Hi. Thanks a lot. The floor is yours.
Sorry, say again?
The floor is yours if you want to.
Thank you. So I had a question about, it goes back to one of your slides, Sylvia. where you showed the various different aspects of sort of citizen engagement, and there were 3 aspects to it. And along the bottom, you were talking about what amounts to local energy markets, so peer-to-peer trading, aggregation, that sort of thing. Do you recall the slide?
Yes, there are 3 business models in SocialRES. One is the peer-to-peer energy trading. In SocialRES, we have Tracklabel, that is the utility in Romania. They have created a peer-to-peer energy trading platform in Bucharest, where there are different prosumer and consumer connected. And the prosumer, they can already trade the energy. They are trained, of course, for doing so. In a few months, we say there will be a report on the SocialRES website about this platform. If you are interested, we are going also to organize webinars with them soon. Maybe I don't remember if it's before or after the summer, but we are going to have a Tracklabel here with us because now the trading platform is in the test phase with all the citizens in Bucharest. And then the results are available soon. I don't know if you have a specific question on this, Andrew.
That my question was going to be, where can I find out more about this type of initiative? Because it's something that I'm very interested in. Here in the UK, there are a number of organisations that are trying to develop such a platform, but we're challenged by network regulation rules. And I would definitely be very interested in hearing more about the peer-to-peer platform in Bucharest. So I'll look out for that one.
Perfect. If you follow SocialRES, also my account, or the SocialRES, I don't know if you are already subscribed to the SocialRES newsletter. We are going to keep informed also our followers, let's say, either in LinkedIn and Twitter with the newsletter. This platform is in the test phase. It's ready now. Is in the test phase, and before, of course, going to the public, I will say they are testing it. But this is one of the results of SocialRES. So in a few months, you will be able to know more. If you follow us, you can take part to the next webinars and ask directly the question to the developer for the platform.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for your participation today. Do you have other questions? No? Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. Any other? I have seen a camera on before. I don't know if it was for maybe Cosmin Capra. If it was for a question, please, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. My question was also, can you give us interesting the platform in Romania, in Bucharest? Can you give us a link to the platform?
Now it's not available because it's in the test phase, but in a few months will be available.
If it's later, please share it with us. Yeah.
Yes. Remember to follow us and ask directly. Great. You can write also an email for reminder in the SocialRES website. There is this email address, or in Twitter and LinkedIn. And then usually we answer also in the comment. So if you keep us reminding, anyhow, there will be a webinar soon for this peer-to-peer platform. If you follow the SocialRES website or on the social media, it will be advertised as was for today, for this webinar of today.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for your interest. You're welcome. Okay, I think there are no further questions. So yes, Yulin, sorry, I don't know if I was interrupting you. I give you the floor to you again for the last comment.
No, that was totally fine.
Perfect.
Yeah. Last comments. Yeah. I think it would be like, I would say this is as SocialRES project is mostly also focused more on like the local level and also regional level, and also at the citizens, at the civil society level. But yeah, I think also for this community, it will be also in the future very important to keep an eye on all different international treaties and agreement, and also cope within the discussion what would be like the future resource, and yeah, like and also the more involvement from the state and from like the other non-state sectors. So yeah, I think, yeah, there will be there will be also an aspect which should also sort of pay some attention to. And I think that's all.
It's quite challenging what we have in the future, I will say.
Yeah.
Coming years. Thanks again, Jung Lin. As I said before to Cosmin, Andrew, we are going now after this webinar. This webinar was a kind of introduction of social innovation through, we wanted to, let's say, define also the framework of social innovation in the life or every day of all of us, because we know how much important is it to contribute to find a solution to the climatic crisis, to mitigate the global warming. And so with this webinar of today, we gave this kind of overview, why what was discussed at the COP26, how SocialRES can give a contribution to the to the target of the COP26. We have seen that is not enough the recognition that we have a political, the political negotiation, as you have highlighted in your slide, Jung Lin, because we need to give more importance of energy, citizenship and social innovation. And also 10% of the climate finance goes to support small stakeholders, vulnerable groups for the climate adaptation mitigation. This was a very relevant outcomes of your slide. Then, as I said, in the upcoming weeks until October 2022, every 2 weeks, more or less, in SocialRES, we are going to organize webinars as today to focus each webinars on a different kind of social innovation. So we have crowdfunding, cooperative, a peer-to-peer trading platform. So I invite all the participants today, also those ones that are in Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn, to follow SocialRES at socialres.eu, the website, but also in the social media, in Twitter and LinkedIn. So follow us, because in the upcoming months, we are going really to give some practical information. So we are going to interview the owner of the crowdfunding platform, the manager of the cooperative, like Constance Foundation, energy community, the track label, utility like track label that they have implemented in their real business, this kind of social innovation. So we are going really to go in practical terms to see how citizens can really take part to the energy transition. And we are going to show really practical example. So thanks again, Jung Lin, for your time of today. Thanks a lot also for your active participation at the COP26. That is really very important to have people like you that can contribute to the sustainable development. So if there are not any other questions from the audience, I will close the webinar now. That it will be available still in our social channels. I ask you again, follow us in the social media, because we have now from the beginning of March, 8 case studies in SocialRES, again, on crowdfunding, cooperative, energy community, and aggregation, so peer-to-peer platform. And I hope that it will be interesting for you. Thanks again. Have a nice lunch if you have not done yet. So we see each other in more or less in the beginning of March with the next webinars on SocialRES. Thanks a lot to all of you, and now we can close the streaming. Thanks a lot.